To support her son, single mother agrees to bathe millionaire. And the unexpected happens before we start the story. Comment below and tell us from which city you're watching. Enjoy the story. Everyone. Chloe had always been a fighter, but in recent months, even her strength was running thin. At 19, she faced the world with Lucas. In her arms now with Lucas at 6 years old, his needs were only growing, and so were the bills. Unemployed and without prospects, she spent her nights holding back tears and her morning searching for hope in places where none seemed to exist. But on that day, something different happened. On the small kitchen table, next to stale bread, lay a piece of paper her neighbor had left earlier. Chloe held the ad with trembling fingers, reading and rereading every word, as if it were a winning lottery ticket. Private caregiver for high-end residents demanding work. Excellent salary seeking discretion and commitment. For a moment, her heart skipped a beat. What did demanding mean? Could someone like her with a simple life full of struggles stand a chance? But the excellent salary that meant a better school for Lucas, a house with space for him to play, and nights where she wouldn't have to choose between paying the electricity or putting food on the table. Chloe took a deep breath. This could be the turning point she'd been hoping for, or the beginning of a new challenge that would change everything. The next morning, Chloe arrived at the mansion. The imposing iron gate opened, revealing a garden so pristine it felt otherworldly. A housekeeper named Lucy greeted her at the door with a polite smile. "Welcome, I'll take you to Mr. Foster, but I must warn you he's demanding and direct. Just be honest." Chloe nodded, her hands clammy as she walked through the silent hallways. When Lucy opened the office door, Chloe saw Arthur Foster for the first time. He was in a wheelchair, impeccably dressed in a suit, but what stood out were his eyes, cold, analytical, and almost challenging. "Are you the candidate?" he asked bluntly. "Yes, sir," Chloe replied, trying to sound confident. Arthur tilted his head slightly. "Why do you want this job?" Chloe took a deep breath. "I'm a single mother. I want to secure a better future for my son, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes." Arthur was silent for a few seconds that felt like an eternity. Then with a brief motion, he turned his wheelchair. "Start tomorrow. Don't disappoint me." That night, as Chloe tucked Lucas into bed, she felt a mix of relief and anxiety. This job could change everything, but something about Arthur's gaze made her think there was far more to this mansion than met the eye. The next day, Chloe arrived for her first day of work. Lucy greeted her again, this time with less formality, but the same efficiency. "Follow me, I'll explain your duties along the way." As they walked through the wide, silent hallways, Lucy spoke clearly. "Mr. Arthur Foster has a very specific routine. Your main responsibility will be assisting him with bathing and dressing. He prefers everything to be quick and efficient. One important note, he doesn't like forced pleasantries. Stay professional." Chloe swallowed hard. Lucy's tone was reassuring, but it didn't erase Arthur's words from the day before. "Don't disappoint me." Those words echoed in her mind like a warning in the master bathrobe. Chloe noticed the assistive equipment adapted for Arthur. There were side rails, a special shower bench, and a small table full of expensive-looking products before she could process everything. The door opened and Arthur entered, expertly maneuvering his wheelchair. "Let's get started. I don't have all day," he said curtly, not even glancing at her. Chloe quickly nodded. "Yes, sir." She began adjusting the bench so he could transfer from the wheelchair. Despite her determination, she couldn't help but notice the scars on his hands as he gripped the rails tightly. He didn't ask for help, but his body spoke volumes. Chloe stood nearby, ready to assist if necessary. "Don't treat me like an invalid," Arthur said suddenly, breaking the silence. "That's not what I'm doing," Chloe replied quickly, trying to keep her voice calm. "I just want to ensure your safety." Arthur scoffed but didn't respond. The rest of the bath continued in awkward silence, broken only by the sound of running water as she soaped his shoulders. Chloe noticed a deep, jagged scar running down his back. She hesitated for a moment but decided not to ask questions. Not yet. After helping Arthur get dressed, Chloe began tidying up the bathroom. He watched her from the corner of his eye as if trying to figure her out. "You seem to be handling this well," he remarked, his tone sounding more like a test than a compliment. "I've been through tougher things," Chloe replied honestly, but without elaborating. Arthur didn't press further. He simply turned his wheelchair toward the door and left the room without another word. The rest of the day was a mix of instructions from Lucy and moments where Chloe had to deal directly. With Arthur, he wasn't exactly rude, but there was something about his demeanor that made it clear he was always in control. Even so, Chloe noticed small details that contradicted his exterior. The way he gripped the armrests of his wheelchair when someone got too close, how he averted his gaze whenever the conversation touched on something personal. At lunch, Chloe met Evelyn for the first time she entered the dining room, with light steps carrying an air of superiority. Her expensive dress, distinctive perfume, and cold gaze made it clear she wasn't someone easy to please. "So you're the new caregiver," Evelyn said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, I'm Chloe," she replied, keeping her composure. Evelyn didn't respond immediately. She let out a short laugh before turning to Arthur. "I hope you don't give her too much trouble. She seems fragile." Arthur didn't react, but Chloe noticed his jaw tighten slightly. The tension in the room was palpable. Evelyn seemed to enjoy provoking, and Chloe realized she'd need to tread carefully around her later. While Chloe was tidying up the rooms, Lucas called from the neighbor's phone. His cheerful voice was the only relief in her 10th day. How was work? Is the house big?" he asked excitedly. "It's different, sweetheart, but I'm okay. Did you eat properly with Anna?" "Yes, but I wish you were here." Chloe's heart tightened, but she kept her voice light. "I do too, my love. But I'm doing this for us now. Make sure to go to bed early." Okay, after hanging up, Chloe stared at the phone for a few minutes. Working at the mansion was a completely different world from what she was used to, and being away from Lucas made it even harder at the end of the day. Lucy stopped to talk to Chloe in the kitchen. "You did well today. Mr. Foster didn't complain, which is a good sign. He seems complicated," Chloe admitted. Lucy let out a short laugh. "That's a compliment compared to how he was at the beginning. The accident changed everything. He lost more than just his mobility. He lost his trust in people before Chloe could ask more." Arthur appeared in the kitchen doorway. He didn't say anything, but his presence seemed to fill the space. "I'll need you early tomorrow," he said, looking directly at Chloe. "Be punctual, of course, sir," she replied, trying not to show her exhaustion. When he left, Lucy patted Chloe's shoulder. "You'll be fine. He just needs time." The next morning started early. Chloe arrived at the mansion before sunrise, meeting Lucy in the kitchen as she prepared a hot cup of tea. "Are you getting used to the routine?" Lucy asked, handing her a mug. "I'm learning, but he's complicated," Chloe said, taking a sip of tea while searching for the right word to describe Arthur. Lucy laughed. "Complicated is the nicest term I've heard, but he wasn't like this before the accident." Not entirely before Chloe could ask more. A deep sound echoed down the hall. Arthur was lightly tapping on the table in the next room, signaling he needed something time to get started. Lucy said, encouraging Chloe with a nod. Entering the living room, Chloe found Arthur staring out the window, his eyes fixed on the pristine gardens. He seemed lost in thought, but the tension in his shoulders showed he was always on alert. "I'm ready to assist you, sir," Chloe said, keeping her tone neutral. Arthur turned his wheelchair toward her and raised an eyebrow. "Let's see how long you can say that." With conviction, Chloe ignored the comment, walking to the kitchen to fetch his morning medications. On her way, she sensed someone behind her turning around. She found Evelyn standing in the hallway. "Good morning," Evelyn said with a smile that dripped with sarcasm. "I hope you're enjoying the job. It's not for everyone. It's challenging, but necessary," Chloe replied politely. Evelyn stepped closer, narrowing her eyes. "You know you can be replaced at any moment. Don't forget that the veiled threat lingered in the air." Chloe stayed silent and returned to her task, feeling Evelyn's gaze following her until she disappeared down the hall. The day carried on, with routine tasks and the constant presence of Arthur, who seemed to test Chloe at every opportunity during the bath. He broke the silence with an unexpected question. "Why are you really here?" Chloe paused for a moment. "I've told you before, I want to secure a better future for my son Arthur." Let out a short, almost bitter laugh. "It's always the same story. Someone's always doing something for someone else. But in the end, it's always for themselves." Chloe felt the coldness in his words but didn't back down. "Maybe it's hard for you to believe that, but not everyone is the same." Arthur stared at her for a moment before looking away. Chloe realized that behind his rigid demeanor, there was more than bitterness. There was pain, a story he guarded fiercely later. While tidying Arthur's room, Chloe came across a box of old photos. One photo caught her attention. Arthur standing and smiling next to a woman she recognized as Evelyn. They seemed happy, but something about her smile looked artificial, like it was only for the camera. Before she could put the photo back, Arthur appeared at the door. "Do you always go through other people's things? I was just—" Chloe began, but Arthur raised a hand, cutting her off. "It doesn't matter. You want to know what happened, don't you?" "Everyone does. They look at me and see a mystery waiting to be solved." Chloe hesitated. She hadn't meant to invade his privacy, but the accusation in his voice made her feel like she had crossed a line. "If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. You don't owe anyone an explanation," she said calmly, putting the photo back in the box. Arthur was silent for a moment before murmuring that photo was taken before the accident, before everything fell apart. He turned and left, leaving Chloe with more questions than answers at lunchtime. Lucas called again. His cheerful voice was the highlight of Chloe's day. "Mom, have you seen the garden? Is it pretty?" "It's beautiful, sweetheart. You'd love it. Maybe one day I can take you here." Lucas giggled. "What about the man in the chair, is he?" "Nice," Chloe thought for a moment before answering. "He's different, but I'm learning how to manage after hanging up." Chloe felt a wave of longing for Lucas. The job was demanding, but she reminded herself she was doing it for him later, while organizing the kitchen cabinets. Lucy appeared with a package in her hands. "This was delivered for you." Chloe opened the package and found an anonymous note. The words were simple but filled with malice. "Watch your step." A chill ran down her spine. Who could have sent it? Evelyn immediately came to mind, but Chloe knew she couldn't accuse anyone. Without proof, she showed the note to Lucy, who looked visibly concerned. "That's strange. I'll look into it. But be careful, Chloe. There are a lot of people here who don't like change at the end of the day." Chloe was exhausted but determined during her final task. She saw Arthur sitting alone in the library, staring at an open book. He didn't seem to be reading. "Do you need anything, sir?" He looked up at her, appearing more tired than usual. "You always ask that. Don't you get tired of trying to help?" "It's my job," Chloe replied, but her voice carried more sincerity than she intended. Arthur observed her for a moment before saying something that surprised her. "Maybe you're not like the others." Maybe it was the first time Chloe saw something close to openness in him, and for the first time she felt that maybe she could make a difference. The next day dawned gray with a light rain covering the mansion's gardens. Chloe was determined to set aside the mystery of the note and focus on her work that morning. Arthur was more reserved than usual. Though it didn't surprise her, he seemed like someone who lived surrounded by high walls, both physical and emotional, as she prepared the bathroom for Arthur's morning routine. She heard the sound of wheels approaching. He entered without a word, wearing his usual cold and watchful expression. "Good morning, sir," Chloe said. Trying to lighten the mood, Arthur didn't respond but gestured for her to begin. Chloe was already getting used to his silence. The routine seemed like any other until Chloe noticed something different during the bath. Arthur avoided looking at her as usual, but his shoulders were less tense. He seemed more at ease, allowing her to work without his usual interruptions or sharp comments. Sir Chloe began hesitating before continuing the weather. "Today is perfect for a walk in the garden. Maybe we could—" "No," he cut her off, his voice as cold as the wind outside. Chloe sighed but didn't push further. Even so, there was something different about him. Small signs only someone close enough could notice later while organizing Arthur's bedroom closet. Chloe found a dusty photo album. She hesitated before opening it. But curiosity won. Inside were pictures of Arthur before the accident, standing smiling, surrounded by friends and family. One photo in particular caught her attention. Arthur was hugging a woman with bright eyes, clearly happy. "I remember that day." Arthur's voice startled her. He was standing at the door watching her intently. Chloe swallowed hard, quickly putting the album back in its place. "Sorry, I was just—" "Don't apologize." He interrupted. That was before a time that no longer exists. Chloe noticed the melancholy in his words. Arthur seemed lost in memories he could no longer reach. "You were happy," she said almost without thinking. Arthur laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. "Happiness is overrated. What matters is control, and that's what I've lost." "Maybe not entirely," Chloe replied softly. "You can still choose how to face things." Arthur didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned his wheelchair and left the room at lunch. Chloe found Evelyn at the table. She was as elegant as ever, but there was something tense in her posture. "Are you enjoying the job?" Chloe Evelyn asked her, tone polite but bordering on provoking. "Yes, ma'am," Chloe replied, keeping her gaze fixed on her plate. Evelyn leaned forward slightly. "Arthur can be difficult. I hope you know how to handle that. He needs someone who understands their place." Chloe felt the sting in Evelyn's words, but kept her composure. "I do my best to fulfill my role." Evelyn smiled, seemingly satisfied with the response, but Chloe felt her discomfort grow. Evelyn's presence was a constant reminder that she needed to tread carefully in the late afternoon. While cleaning the library, Chloe received another call from Lucas. His cheerful voice was a welcome relief in an otherwise heavy day. "Mommy, I drew you today," Lucas said excitedly. "Really, I can't wait to see it when I get home." Chloe replied, smiling. "I love you, Mommy," he said, his sweet voice filling Chloe's heart with hope. "I love you too, sweetheart. Be good for Anna." After hanging up, Chloe felt tears welling up. Lucas was her strength, but the weight of the distance between them seemed to grow heavier each day later. While preparing dinner, Arthur entered the kitchen. He rarely came there, and his presence caught Chloe off guard. "You seem different today," he remarked, his tone almost casual. "Different how?" she asked, curious, less submissive. "That's good," chuckled softly. "I'm not submissive, I just respect my work." Arthur looked at her for a moment, as if assessing every word she said. "That's good too." Throughout the evening, Chloe noticed that Arthur seemed less resistant to interactions. He was still reserved, but there was a subtle shift in his demeanor. Perhaps he was beginning to trust her, even just a little. The next day, Chloe decided to try something new during the usual morning bath. She asked, "Have you ever considered spending time in the garden?" Arthur raised an eyebrow. "You're bringing that up again. I think it would be good. Fresh air can do wonders," she insisted, trying to sound casual. Arthur hesitated, but eventually gave a brief nod. Chloe seized the opportunity, and minutes later, they were in the garden surrounded by flowers and tall trees. Arthur seemed uncomfortable at first, but gradually Chloe noticed him relax. The gentle breeze brushed against his face as he gazed at the cloudy sky. "I used to come here often," Arthur admitted, breaking the silence before the accident. "It was my favorite place, and it still can be." Chloe replied, "Nothing has been completely taken from you. You just need to rediscover what makes you feel good." Arthur didn't reply, but his hands relaxed on the armrests of his wheelchair. Chloe knew that although small, this moment was a victory. The morning was cold but clear, and Chloe started her day by adjusting the curtains in Arthur's room. Letting sunlight flood the space, Arthur watched in silence, as he often did, his gaze distant, fixed on something beyond the windows. "Good morning, sir," Chloe said, breaking the silence. Arthur looked up but didn't respond immediately. He seemed different, less rigid, as if the previous day's walk in the garden had broken an invisible barrier. "Good morning," he finally replied, his tone neutral but lacking the usual coldness. Chloe saw this as a small step forward. She was learning that with Arthur, every step was subtle and full of meaning. As Chloe adjusted Arthur's equipment for his bath, she heard a soft noise coming from the hallway. At first she thought it was Lucy, but when she opened the door, she found Lucas. Chloe whispered, crouching down to her son's level. "What are you doing here, Anna? Shouldn't have let you come on your own. I wanted to see you, Mommy." Lucas replied, holding a rolled-up drawing in his small hands. Chloe sighed, feeling a mix of exasperation and tenderness. She knew he missed her, that this wasn't the time or place before she could discreetly take Lucas out. Arthur appeared in the hallway. He looked at the boy with a curious expression, but said nothing. Lucas, on the other hand, seemed unfazed. "Are you the man in the chair?" Lucas asked directly, tilting his head with childlike curiosity. Arthur frowned slightly but replied, "I am Lucas." Stepped closer, holding out his drawing. "I made this for my mom, but I think you might like it too." Chloe tried to intervene. "Lucas, that's not appropriate. Let's go." "Let him," Arthur interrupted, surprising Chloe. He took the drawing and looked at it silently. It was a simple sketch full of vibrant colors. Something about its innocence made the corners of Arthur's lips curve into an almost imperceptible smile. "Do you like to draw?" he asked Lucas. "Yes, when I grow up, I want to be an artist." My mom says I'm very creative, Lucas said enthusiastically. Arthur nodded slightly. Maybe you have something many people lose as they grow older. Chloe, still trying to process what was happening, stayed silent, observing the unexpected interaction between the two. After Anna took Lucas back, Chloe returned to Arthur's room. He was holding the drawing on his lap, looking at it as if it were a rare artifact. Your son is interesting, Arthur remarked. Hun my strength, Chloe replied. Everything I do is for him. Arthur didn't respond immediately. Evelyn asked with disdain. Chloe stopped what she was doing and met her gaze. I'm here to work. I'm not looking for conflict. Evelyn let out a short, harsh laugh. Conflict, you've already created one. Arthur is against me because of you. Arthur is against you because you tried to betray him, Chloe replied calmly but firmly. Evelyn stepped closer, dangerously near. Do you think you can stand up to me? People like you don't belong in this world. I will destroy you before Chloe could respond. Arthur entered the room. He observed the scene for a moment before speaking. That's enough, Evelyn. This has gone too far, he said firmly. Evelyn turned to him surprised. Arthur, don't believe what she says. I only want what's best for you. You, Arthur shook his head. The best for me. You mean the best for you. I've seen enough, Evelyn. You no longer have a place in this house. Evelyn stood frozen for a moment before laughing bitterly. You think you can get rid of me that easily? I know things that could destroy you. Arthur remained unfazed. Do whatever you want, but know that anything you try against me will only reflect who you truly are. Evelyn stormed out of the room, leaving Chloe and Arthur alone. Thank you for defending me, Sir, Chloe said, still a bit tense. I didn't do it for you. Chloe, I did it for myself. It's time I started standing up for myself too. He replied. Later that night, Chloe spoke to Lucas on the phone again. His voice was a welcome relief amidst the day chaos. Mommy, today I drew a big house with flowers in the garden. Does it look like the mansion? Yes, it looks a lot like it, Chloe said, laughing. And the man in the chair is, he walking? Lucas asked. He's trying love and he's making great progress, Chloe replied, feeling proud after hanging up. Chloe reflected on Lucas's words. His simple way of seeing the world was a reminder of why she was there. Facing everything the next day, Evelyn became even more aggressive. She avoided Arthur, but made sure to confront Chloe whenever she had the chance. While Chloe was organizing the kitchen cabinets, Evelyn entered abruptly. Arms crossed, you should leave before things get worse, Evelyn said in a threatening tone. Chloe ignored her and continued her work. I warned you, Evelyn continued. You'll regret coming here. I didn't come here to fight with you. Evelyn, I'm here to work and to help Mr. A. Foster, Chloe said, trying to stay calm. Evelyn stepped closer, but before she could say anything, Lucy appeared at the door. Is everything all right here? Lucy asked, casting a sharp look at Evelyn. Evelyn didn't respond. She simply left the kitchen, visibly frustrated. At the end of the day, Arthur asked Chloe to meet him in the office again. He seemed more relaxed, as though a difficult decision had finally been made. Chloe, I want to thank you for everything you've done for me. I know it's not easy dealing with Evelyn and with me, he said, giving her a faint smile. It's my job, sir, and it's a privilege to see you making progress, Chloe replied. Arthur shook his head. It's more than that. You've shown me that there's something more, that maybe I still have something worth fighting for. Chloe felt the impact of his words for the first time. She saw Arthur not as a bitter man, but as someone beginning to rebuild himself. The morning began with a different energy in the mansion. There was tension in the air, but at the same time a sense of imminent change. As Chloe prepared breakfast, she tried to organize her thoughts about everything that had happened over the past few days. Evelyn remained a threatening presence, but Arthur was more determined than ever to stand up to her. Lucy entered the kitchen as Chloe finished arranging the tray. Have you heard what Evelyn is planning? Lucy asked, her tone filled with concern. Chloe paused and looked at her. No. What is she up to now? Lucy sighed. Crossing her arms, she's been talking to some of Arthur's lawyers and seems to be trying to gain their support to challenge his ability to make decisions about his own business. A chill ran down Chloe's spine. Is that even possible? Not without substantial evidence. But Evelyn is cunning if she manipulates the right people. She could make things very difficult for him, Lucy explained. Chloe pressed her lips together, feeling her worry grow. Arthur needs to know about this. Lucy nodded. You should be the one to tell him he trusts you later. Chloe found Arthur in the garden, observing the flowers under the morning sun. He seemed calmer than usual, but Chloe knew that this moment of peace was only temporary. Mr. Foster, may I speak with you? She asked, approaching him. Arthur turned his chair to face her. Of course, what is it? Chloe explained what Lucy had told her about Evelyn and her plans as she spoke. She saw Arthur's expression, harden, his eyes growing colder, with every word check really gone that far. He said more to himself than to Chloe. We need to act before she gets anywhere. Chloe insisted. Arthur nodded, his jaw tightening. I've been expecting this. I have something prepared, but it will require patience. She needs to make her final mistake before I can expose her completely. Chloe hesitated. What if she tries something before that? Arthur looked at her directly, his voice steady. Then we'll be ready that afternoon. Arthur asked Chloe to join him in the physical therapy room. He seemed resolute, as if he were channeling his frustration into physical effort. Let's play a little game for those who only read the comments. Type Coca-Cola. In the comments, only those who've made it this far will understand. Now let's continue the story today. I'm going to try standing up again, he said, positioning his chair beside the parallel bars. Chloe moved closer, ready to assist. Take it slow, sir. One step at a time. Arthur began to lift himself using all the strength in his arms. He managed to partially stand, his muscles trembling. With the effort, Chloe's heart raced as she supported him, offering encouragement. You're doing amazing, sir, she said enthusiastically. Arthur remained upright for a few seconds before returning to his chair. Exhausted but satisfied, he was breathing heavily, but a faint smile appeared on his face. I felt something in my legs, he said, breathless. Chloe smiled. That's huge progress. Every small step counts. Arthur looked at her, his gaze softer than usual. You've been part of this, Chloe, thank you. After the session, as Chloe helped Arthur settle back into his chair, Evelyn entered the room. She stopped in the doorway, watching them with a disdainful expression. Another little performance, she said. Crossing her arms, Arthur turned to face her, his expression now firm. If you're here to criticize Evelyn, I suggest you leave. Evelyn let out a short laugh. I'm just stating the truth. Arthur, you're deluding yourself, and she said, pointing at Chloe, is just feeding into it. Chloe stayed silent, but Arthur immediately responded. What Chloe is doing is something you never did, helping me believe in myself, and that's something no one can take away from me. Evelyn narrowed her eyes but didn't reply. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Later that night, Chloe was in the kitchen organizing the cabinets when Lucas called. Her son's cheerful voice was a relief. After the 10th day, Mommy. Today I drew a picture of you and the man in the chair. He's walking in the drawing, Lucas said excitedly. Chloe laughed. Really? I can't wait to see it. Are you behaving? Yes, but I miss you, Lucas said, his voice softening. I miss you too, my love. But we'll be together soon. I promise. Chloe said, feeling her throat tighten with emotion. After hanging up, Chloe stood still for a few moments, holding the phone. Lucas was her greatest motivation, and she knew that every effort she made in the mansion was for him. The next morning, Arthur asked Chloe to join him in the library again. He was flipping through a set of documents, his expression focused. I have something important to tell you. He began without looking at her. I'm listening, sir, Chloe replied, curious. Arthur closed the folder of documents and finally looked at her. I'm going to confront Evelyn once and for all, but you should know this might change a lot of things here. Chloe frowned. What do you mean? Arthur took a deep breath. If things spiral out of control, you might become a target too. I need to know if you're ready to handle the best. Chloe hesitated for a moment before responding. I'm here for a reason, sir, and I'm not giving up now. Arthur gave a small smile, nodding. I knew you'd say that. The morning began with palpable tension in the mansion. Chloe knew Arthur was preparing to face Evelyn, but what concerned her most was what Evelyn might be planning. Their interactions had grown more intense in recent days, and Chloe had a feeling something big was about to happen. As she prepared breakfast, Lucy hurried into the kitchen holding an envelope. Her worried expression made Chloe put down what she was doing immediately. Another note, Chloe asked, already expecting the answer. Lucy nodded, handing her the envelope. Chloe opened it and read the short, threatening words, "If you think you're going to win, you're very mistaken." "She's desperate," Lucy said. Crossing her arms, Chloe took a deep breath, folded the note, and slipped it into her pocket. Desperation can be dangerous. But I'm ready. Later that morning, Arthur summoned Chloe to his office. He was seated in his wheelchair, a laptop open, and several documents spread across the desk when Chloe entered. He gestured for her to sit. "I received news from my lawyers." He began. "Evelyn tried to transfer a significant amount of money to an offshore account. They blocked the transaction, but it proves she's willing to do anything." Chloe frowned. "What are you going to do now?" Arthur closed the laptop, his expression firm. "Today is the day I'm going to confront her with the evidence and demand that she leave my life for good. And if she refuses," Chloe asked, worried, "then I'll take legal action," Arthur replied. "But I want to try resolving this without a scandal. At least for now." The confrontation took. Chloe stayed in the kitchen, but the tension was so thick it seemed to seep through the wall. "Wallace, why are you doing this?" "Evelyn," Arthur began, his voice controlled but firm. "Doing what?" Evelyn replied, her voice laced with false innocence. Arthur placed the documents on the table. "You know exactly what embezzling funds, trying to manipulate my business. I won't tolerate this." Evelyn laughed, but there was a nervous edge to her voice. "Do you really think you can accuse me of this?" "You have no proof. I have all the proof I need," Arthur replied, pointing to the documents. "And if any necessary, I'll take them to court." The room went silent for a moment before Evie interrupted. "You're accusing me of betrayal after everything I've done for you." "I was here when no one else was." "You were here because you thought you could benefit," Arthur retorted. "But that ends now from a distance." Chloe listened, hearing their voices echo through the house. When the door abruptly opened, Evelyn stormed out, her face flushed with anger. She shot Chloe a withering GL before disappearing down the hallway. Arthur appeared shortly after, visibly shaken. "She's leaving," he said, his voice softer now. She agreed to it. Chloe asked, surprised. "Not exactly, but she knows she's lost." "The lawyers will handle the rest," he replied. Chloe felt a wave of relief, though she knew the battle wasn't entirely over that afternoon. As Chloe helped Arthur with his physical therapy, he seemed more focused than ever. Every movement, no matter how small, felt charged with meaning. "You seem more determined today," Chloe commented as she adjusted the equipment. "That's because I know I'm back in control," Arthur replied, "and I want to keep it that way." He began lifting himself on the parallel bars, his arms trembling with the effort. Chloe encouraged him every step of the way until he managed to hold himself up longer than ever before. "That's incredible, Sir Chloe," exclaimed, her smile wide. Arthur looked at her, breathless but with a satisfied smile. "I never would have gotten here without you, Chloe." "Thank you." Chloe felt her heart race but maintained her composure. "It's all your effort, sir. I'm just here to help later." As Chloe organized the library, Lucas called again. His cheerful voice was a balm amidst the chaos of recent days. "Mommy, when can I visit you?" "I want to see the man in the chair," Lucas said excitedly. "Soon, my love. I promise we'll plan it," Chloe replied, laughing. Lucas paused before asking, "Is he walking yet?" "Hyun's making great progress, sweetheart." "Hyun very strong," Chloe said, feeling proud after hanging up. Chloe reflected on Lucas's words. His simple, pure faith was something she knew Arthur was starting to rediscover as well. At the end of the day, Arthur asked Chloe to join him in the garden. The sky was clear, painted in soft shades of orange and pink, creating a serene atmosphere. Today was an important day. Arthur said, gazing at the horizon. "It truly was." "Sir, you handled everything remarkably well," Chloe replied. Arthur looked at her, his expression softer than she had ever seen. "You're part of this, Chloe. I don't think I would have come this far without you here." Chloe felt warmth rise in her chest, but before she could respond, Arthur continued, "There's something I need to say." He began, hesitating for a moment. "I feel like I'm changing, and I think you're the reason for that." Chloe stayed silent, surprised by his words. She had noticed something different about Arthur, but hearing it from him left her momentarily speechless. "Thank you for not giving up on me," he said with a shy smile. Chloe finally found her voice. I would never give up on you, Arthur, because I know there's so much more to you than even you realize. The days that followed brought definitive changes to the mansion. Evelyn left abruptly, leaving behind a trail of resentment and bitterness that Arthur seemed determined to overcome. Despite everything, her absence brought new energy to the house, and the mansion felt less stifling. Arthur was more focused than ever. His physical therapy sessions were now daily, and he insisted on pushing his limits. Chloe was by his side at every step, encouraging and supporting him. One sunny afternoon, Arthur achieved what once seemed impossible. He stood up from the parallel bars without Chloe's help. It was only for a few seconds, but it was enough to bring tears to her eyes. "You did it!" Chloe exclaimed. Beaming, Arthur, breathless but radiant, replied, "We did it. This is as much your victory as it is mine." She laughed quickly, wiping her tears. "You're surpassing everyone's expectations." Sir Arthur looked at her deeply, his expression holding something more than gratitude, including my own. "But I had you to remind me it was still possible." That night, as Chloe prepared for bed, Lucas called. Her son's cheerful voice lit up her fatigue. "Mommy, I made another drawing today. It's you, me, and the man in the chair. We're all at a park." Chloe laughed, imagining the simple yet meaningful drawing. "I can't wait to see it. My love, we're so close to making that happen. Will he walk?" Money, Lucas asked with the innocence only a child could have. "Yes, my love, he's getting closer every day," Chloe said, feeling the truth in her words. After hanging up, Chloe thought about how her journey in the mansion had not only changed Arthur, but also herself. The next morning, Arthur called Chloe to the office. He was sitting in his wheelchair, an envelope resting on the desk in front of him. "Chloe, you've been more than an employee to me." He began, his voice steady but sincere. She felt her heart race. "I've just done what I thought was right." Sir Arthur gave a slight smile. "And that's more than most people would do. I want you to know that you've changed my life, and I want to change yours as well." He slid the envelope toward her. "Open it." Chloe hesitated before opening it. Inside, she found a formal contract offering her a permanent position as his personal assistant, with a salary she had never dreamed of. "I don't know what to say," Chloe murmured, her eyes filling with tears. "Say, you accept," Arthur said, smiling. Chloe nodded, finally letting the tears fall. "I accept, thank you, sir." That evening, Chloe and Lucas were finally reunited at the mansion. Arthur had insisted the boy visit, and to Chloe's surprise, he had personally prepared a small gift for Lucas, a professional drawing kit. Lucas was thrilled, running to hug Arthur without hesitation. "Thank you, sir. I'm going to draw you walking." Arthur chuckled, touched by the boy's contagious energy. "And I'll work to make that happen soon." Deal. In the following weeks, Arthur continued to dedicate himself to his recovery, but now with even greater motivation. Lucas's presence brought a sense of likeness to the mansion, and even Lucy seemed more cheerful with the new dynamic. Then one day, the impossible happened. During a physical therapy session, Arthur took his first step. It was hesitant but real. Chloe watched in disbelief as Arthur, with the support of the bars, moved one leg forward. "You did it!" Chloe exclaimed, holding back tears. Arthur smiled, his eyes shining. "This is just the beginning." Months later, the mansion was filled with celebration. Arthur hosted a small gathering in the garden to celebrate his recovery and the changes in his life. Chloe and Lucas stood by his side, along with Lucy, who couldn't stop smiling at the end of the event. Arthur did something unexpected. He took Chloe's hand and looked deeply into her eyes. "Chloe, you brought light into my life when everything was dark. You gave me reasons to believe again. And now I want to ask if you would stay by my side, not just as my assistant, but as my wife." Chloe was speechless, but the tears in her eyes and the smile on her face were answer enough. Lucas ran to them, hugging them both tightly. "Now we're a real family." A few months later, Arthur and Chloe were married in a simple yet love-filled ceremony. Lucas, with his contagious energy, was the center of attention, while Arthur, now walking with the help of a can, delivered an emotional speech about resilience. And love. The mansion, once a place of tension and loneliness, was now full of life and laughter. And for Arthur, Chloe, and Elle, this was just the beginning of a story filled with hope and happiness. And what about you? What did you think of Chloe and Lucas' story? Leave your opinion in the comments. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What's your score? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories, and don't forget to check out more emotional stories by clicking here on the end screen.